Welcome back. So today, as promised, I'm going to show you how to make pie crust. This is so simple, and pie crust for some reason gets a bad rap. It takes minutes to pull together, and it's better than any of that stuff you can get in the store. So what you're going to need: ice water, a cup of flour, a half a cup of butter, and the butter needs to be really cold. What I'll do is I'll cut it up in tablespoon segments, put it in the freezer while I'm getting everything else together for maybe 5 or 10 minutes just to get it really nice and cold, and a half a teaspoon of salt. Now, a lot of times I use my stand mixer or my food processor to make dough, but I'm going to show you how to do it using just your hands. So no excuses for Thanksgiving. In a bowl, combine the flour and salt and just stir it up a little bit. All you do is add in your cold butter and just smoosh the pieces, breaking them up just into like roughly quarter-sized chunks. We want to minimize the contact with our hands in the butter because our hands are warm, and we want to keep this really cold. It's going to help your crust be really nice and flaky. So when you've got all of the big butter chunks broken up into these kind of like, I don't know, walnut-sized pieces, then you take the flour and your butter in your hands and you smear it. And what you're doing is you're creating these long, flaky pieces. Our objective is to get all of the flour in contact with some of the butter. And you go through this maybe 10 or 12 times. So basically what you're left with is this mealy bit with pea-sized or even hazelnut-sized chunks. That's it. Add in your water and just mix it with your hand just until it starts to form together into a ball. You don't want to overwork it. You just want it to hold together in a unified disc. And that's it. What did that take? Like a minute and a half? This needs to rest. What we've done is we've activated the gluten in the flour. So the gluten is what is stretchy. It's the protein. So it's like a rubber band. We've tightened it all the way out just by working the dough, and we need it to relax so that we can roll it out again, and that's going to tighten back up, and then we're once again going to let it relax. So this dough has 2 rests. The first one is a minimum of an hour, and it needs to be in the fridge just chilling and relaxing and getting nice and cold before we roll it out. While our crust is in the refrigerator resting, we have plenty of time to make our filling. This particular crust is going to be used in a pumpkin pie. So if you're interested in making the best pumpkin pie ever that's sugar-free, sweetened with maple syrup, I'll put the link at the end of this video. Our dough has been resting for an hour. At this point, you can just freeze these discs and then pull them out of the freezer when you need them, or you can refrigerate them for about 3 or 4 days. So take a little flour on your board, on your hands, on your dough. Now, I brought this out to show you guys, these are not very common in the United States. They're French rolling pins. They're really wonderful for making small tarts or small rounds where you need the dough to be perfectly round. And you basically, it's thicker in the middle and little on the edges, and you hold it at an angle and you can roll it in a circle. I am not super proficient using these, but if you are interested in making perfect little round tarts, you might want to check out the French pen. So what you want at this point, what you want to look for, and what we've achieved with this dough, is you'll see pockets of butter, which is why we want to keep this nice and cold, because those pockets will start melting and get all goopy if you don't roll this out quickly. So here's an easy trick to get your crust in your pan without ripping it, is just roll it up on your pen and unroll it over your plate. Now because we've worked that gluten again, we've stretched out our dough, it's going to want to shrink. So at this point, I just take the edges and kind of really push it in and help minimize any of that shrinking that's going to occur naturally. And get that dough all seated. If you have wrinkles, don't worry about it. This is not one of those crusts like in the grocery store with the perfectly crisp edges. That is done by using vegetable shortening, and vegetable shortening is a fat that is not only bad for you, it adds nothing. It adds no flavor, nothing. So shortening, it coats your mouth. I think it's a terrible thing. So this is a softer butter crust, and the edges are going to be just like mildly wavy, so you don't have to get all crazy with it at this point. So it really doesn't matter. Take a knife, and we want to keep just, maybe an inch overlap so that we can roll our crust under and finish that edge off. And I like to just even it up so you don't have thick bits and thin bits. I take the raw edge and just roll it underneath, all the way around. Okay, now to crimp it. Now we do this for two reasons. It pushes a little lip onto the outside of the pie pan to keep your dough from sliding back in, and then it just kind of finishes it off. And what you're doing is I'm pulling back with two fingers and pushing forward with one. So I'm pushing it forward, pushing it forward, pushing it forward. And I'm pressing down when I'm doing this so that I kind of emboss the crust. I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator for another half an hour before I add my filling. And what that does is it allows that gluten to just relax one more time to minimize shrinkage. Now, if you wanted to take your crust to this point, you can freeze it in your shell so it's ready to go. Pull the frozen crust out of the freezer, fill it with pie filling, and then just bake it off. It adds maybe 5 minutes to your bake time. So those are options, and they're both time saving. It just depends on how much space you have in your freezer. Put together a couple videos using this crust. The two top videos, one sweet and one savory, pumpkin pie on the left hand side and onion tarts on your right. In the bottom left hand corner, just in time for the holiday baking season, I added my grandmother's famous fudge. This recipe comes to me via a lot of controversy. She wouldn't give it to my mom, but she did give it to her granddaughter. So I'm sharing it with you, and it is so good. I hate to even call it fudge because it's better than fudge. And because there's 8 inches of snow outside, I did a little blast back to this summer, a surfing trip that we took to the Oregon coast. Enjoy your day. Thanks for watching. See you next time.